Kia ora everyone. Today I'm joined by Roger Heel and Ryan Forrester from Whistling Wizard again, who are the winners of the 2020 Kiwi Game Starter competition with the game Rose and Locket. We spoke to them earlier in the year and had an interview with a series of questions, which I'll be repeating, but the value will come from seeing how their project has evolved over the year and how their answers have changed, which is what I'm really excited about getting into. So thanks for joining me today. The first question that I asked was if you could please introduce yourselves, say the date and your role on the team, and maybe the team as a whole, because I feel like you might have a few more people involved in Rose and Locket now. So if you could share, just introduce yourselves, the date, and the team that are behind Rose and Locket at the moment.
Yeah, so my name is Roger Hill. I'm basically doing art, animation, general visual design, this type of thing. It's the 15th of December. I'll let Ryan go and then I'll cover a couple of the other people that we have that have joined the team.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Forrester. I do the programming for the game, and it is the 15th of December.
Awesome.
Cool. And yeah, we've expanded a little bit. So we basically have, obviously we'll come up further in the conversation, but about our publisher agreement, that type of thing. We haven't expanded the core development team. So it's just all Ryan and myself, but we are picking out voice actors. So we have 3 solid voice talents on board at this point, and more lined up that we can't quite talk about just yet, but we can definitely talk about the 3 that we have locked in. So yeah, that's
awesome.
pretty much where we are.
Yeah, so your publisher, I suppose, is quite like a big step. We'll get into it maybe a bit later. But next question is what keeps you up at night when thinking about your game at the moment?
That was a good question the first time around. I think it's still keeping us up at night. Yeah, look, it's probably at this point we're probably not as up as we used to be. We'll put it that way. You know, we've kind of come very much into that full circle of having all of our systems entirely in place, and we've kind of, you know, been obsessive over what we want the game to be, and not having feature creep and all these types of things that kind of plague, you know, games, and especially when you're directing yourself, and, you know, that expansion of ideas and losing the initial focus. So, I mean, at this point, really what it is probably just the next day's tasks. You know, it's we just have that timeline and deadlines now, and we just know what's happening moment to moment. So yeah, it's just basically waking up, bunch of coffee, and away we go.
I love it. Yeah, anything to add, Ryan?
No, it's pretty straightforward. It's been a lot calmer now. We've still got a lot of work on, but I guess there's more direction now than there was before. Now that we've got everything we needed secured, so it's been good.
That's awesome. Next question: what is it that you're most looking forward to for the future of Whistling Wizard?
I guess now pretty much Rose and Locket going to market. I mean, you know, it's really in this space, and we're probably in the point now where, with the kind of publisher agreement, everything that's happening, and things are so established that there are murders starting to happen about our future games and kind of team expansions and this type of thing. So we're definitely, now that we have this locked in, we're thinking a lot more kind of those 5-10 year plans if we can make it that far. So yeah.
That's awesome. It's awesome that it's interesting to see that shift going from the project to like establishing it as a company and kind of making that cycle turn, because yeah, once the game launches, you kind of already want to have your next game in development, which it's interesting that mentality's kind of changed for you guys now. Next question is, where do you hope to be in 6 months' time? I don't know if have you announced when Rose and Locket will be released to market?
No, and we won't be.
Okay.
So
yeah, we don't actually know.
yeah. We do have the relative time frame, but at this point, it's still, yeah, it's pretty solid, but it's also somewhat fluid as well. So these kind of long-term projects are like that. You know that yourself. So yeah, we will announce that a little closer to the time. That'll be all over on social.
So without giving any spoilers, is there anything you are looking forward to and to get done in 6 months' time aside from the project release date? Is there anything else on your mind that's big?
Yeah, so there's definitely like these key points that we're working towards. So they are the deadline points, and they, you know, the great thing with Rose and Locket is it's very structured, and we kind of have the 6 sins and 7 sins that you battle in the game, and each one of those is kind of like a milestone that we've set out. So it is kind of like this really nice, solid stepping stone system, and we know the kind of time frame we need per segment and that type of thing to kind of accomplish this overall experience. So yeah, I guess if we look at 6 months from heading into next year, and then we know exactly where we're going to be in the game there, we know that the voice talent we've gone in, which is going to be phenomenal, and we're going to have those big epic battles going on. So that won't be public viewed, but it'll still be sitting there, and we'll be game testing, and it's just going to be a really nice space to be in, because that has been worked on and planned for quite a long time. So yeah.
That's awesome. I can't wait to just see the big trailer that you guys put out ahead of the release, because I can just see it pulling at the heartstrings, having a lot of action in it, and looking beautiful and colorful. And I'm excited.
So we're talking with sorry.
For me, because we're planning to do another public demo at some point in the future. I don't know exact dates for that either, but it'd be good to see, with all this stuff we've brought into the game now and how many things have changed, it'd be good to see what people think of it now compared to the last year's one.
Yeah. So this question we kind of touched on a bit before we started recording, but the question is, what did you gain from the mentorship program that the NZGDA provided? And I think an interesting point that you made was that you were maybe a bit too far ahead for the mentorship. Like the kind of questions that were asked, you'd already kind of answered. But is there anything that you did feel like you gained from that whole experience that you'd like to touch on?
Like we kind of previously mentioned, it was a bit tricky. We kind of got into the second part of the mentorship, and the person that we were dealing with did state within the call lasted about 7 minutes, and I think they stated that basically we had exceeded their experience within the industry. So that was a really nice point for us, but it was also kind of the end of that initial experience right there. Like I said to you before, we hadn't really had a stopping point. This year has been phenomenally all go for us. So there was Kiwi Starter, and then we were in heavy negotiations straight after that with 2 big publishers that were really interested in the game. So we had the big solicitor process. So we hadn't really had a moment to kind of stop, and I think that was probably the point that made us realize that we had really gone through that full cycle process. So that was interesting. So that was a really nice point that came out of it. And I guess it just made us feel overall that we had the understanding of publisher agreements and that pipeline down of, pitch decks and all the rest, and then, establishing a nice relationship and having that professional setup. So it was nice, that was probably the most positive that came out of it for me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy that you had those publisher negotiations right after Kiwi Game Starter, because like Kiwi Game Starter, I feel like the prize money isn't enough to deliver it's just to help you get a little bit further to selling the prototype or whatever it might be, and the fact that you're so far ahead is awesome to see that you got that far during the competition, which is cool. Really good value for us to know as well.
Yeah, and I guess on that point, like Kiwi Game Starter was amazing for us, because we were literally hanging in the back of the call. We thought we were contenders. It was so fast paced, we had no idea how it was going to go. So that was right at that point before we started to move into all that. It was such a nice boost for us, and everything inclusive. It was really special actually, just to kind of have that. And then it gave us a lot of confidence moving into these kind of talks that take quite a while, and obviously there's a lot of stress and pressure, and you have to really make these big calls, right? So these big decisions. So yeah, it was a really nice series of events. So I don't know, massive thank you to NZGDA again. That was an incredible experience for us.
Yeah, that's all good. I asked you guys what you were going to do with the money, the prize money. I can't remember exactly what you answered, but is there anything that you'd like to add 6 months on, like how that affected the process at all?
Yeah, so I think our initial answer might have been motorbikes, but we didn't do that. So we all got a few motorbikes and stuck with the ones we got. But no, look, basically what basically what we did with that money is we're putting it in there for post Rose and Locket. So I mean that gives us a really nice, basically a buffing zone for us to flesh out our future pitches on these kind of concepts that we're prototyping and spare time outside the initial development of Rose and Locket. So yeah, so what it does is it obviously a good sizable amount of money like that gives you a really good breathing space to just put more development into continuing the company. So yeah, so very, very helpful there.
That's awesome. What was the most valuable lesson that you learned over the last 6 months?
It's kind of probably that same narrative that we were talking about initially. We're not losing that core idea. There's this whole kind of feature creep thing that I think happens in the industry a lot these days, where you feel like you have to have a crafting system, it has to have this, this, and this. And you're looking at all these kind of bells and whistles, and you're like, just trying to stay on task of that initial core kind of game loop that you love and you got into it. So the bigger a project grows and the more people and the more eyes that are on it, you know, we've hit kind of some milestones online, so we have those kind of numbers and stuff now, and it's very easy to kind of go, man, this game needs to be so much more and more and more, and you just have to rein it back in and be like, okay, remember that core mission statement. That's been very important. So for me anyway, that's been a big part of it.
That's I agree with that. It's pretty onto it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So it hasn't changed at all since you know, when we last spoke. The kind of visions remained the same, and the core loops stayed the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the hardest thing to do. And I mean, the amount of documents you're keeping, notes, and just trying to keep your mentality in check when you're designing your game. Like, it's over such a long period of time that, I mean, you are a different person halfway through your project, you know, right? It changes you, and you change as a designer and a developer. And, you know, you have to keep that core mentality, and that's a very difficult task. And it's especially very difficult when, you know, you get out there in the public space, because we make this joke where it's like, you know, you might be building any type of game you want, but somebody come in and go, hey, I like your game, but I like a medieval game, so why don't you make it about knights? And it's like, we're building a Formula One game, you know? So it's, you know, you get a lot of input, you get a lot of feedback, and I mean, that can affect anybody. Nobody's kind of strong enough to weather that storm entirely. So it's very important to really document your core idea and to go back to that and revisit it constantly, and your influences and these types of things. So, you know, keeping yourself in check is a big part of this thing. Not getting lost in the source, as Ryan puts it, is a great way of putting it. You know? So, yeah.
Love it. What does your "we've made it" moment look like to you?
Oh,
question.
Like number one on Steam.
And we had a showcase recently, and it was a relatively small showcase, but it was kind of our first international one.
Yeah, Mix Next.
Mix Next, yeah. And we were smack bang in the middle when it was a pretty rushed affair with the video and everything, but we gained quite good numbers. We won't talk about them with the wish listing. And I think that was a really nice moment, because we just had that kind of interest in the game. So I think, yeah, if we can kind of make it up there in numbers on Steam, I mean, we're talking to the publishers about console releases, this type of thing. So I guess probably seeing it on those storefronts, and if they get up in that kind of that top category of viewership and that type of thing, that would be amazing. Yeah. And I guess the other point was kind of really going through and signing the agreement with the publishers was a huge moment for us as well. And that took quite a while for us to even realize that had happened and went through, and you know, just that. So that was a pretty big undertaking, and it kind of takes you a while to realize that it's all kind of happened, and there you are. So yeah, so that's, you know, that's a big agreement. That's two guys, we just do our things, and now we're, you know, international release, and it's going out to 14 different languages, and it's yeah, it's been a big undertaking.
That's amazing. A lot of developers, you know, don't get the chance to get publishers on board and might self-release, and yeah, just the fact that you've come this far is amazing, and definitely not the usual for the average game developers or passionate indie devs. So that's awesome. What has been the most challenging part of development so far?
It's can imagine, I can't remember the initial answer, but it'll probably be something quite similar, where Rose and Locket is designed from a unique perspective. We didn't kind of, it's not really based off anything, which, in the game industry it's a hard path to travel, because you've got a lot of different ideas that you have to meld together, and they have to work, right? You can't have this part's great and that's not, and I mean, that's not going to be a great user experience. So, I mean, time will tell whether it's a great user experience, but we had to incorporate a lot of ideas that took a lot of hard design work to kind of gel in a clean type of design as well. So we're not big into adding more features to solve problems. So we kind of bang our heads up against walls until the wall breaks, hopefully, and we get through to the other side. So yeah, that's been a big challenge. And I think a lot of core features in Rose and Locket as well. So 360 aiming, and a recent one that we've come across is accessibility as well. So if you've got a controller per se, and you have swapping weapons, and you have 360 aiming, and you have special abilities and stuff of thing, how do you kind of get that flowing and convey it, and how many options do you add, and accessibility and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's been a lot.
Awesome. This is a question that I want both of you guys to answer individually. Is what does the average day of development look like right now? Starting with you, Ryan.
That's pretty casually. It's pretty good. Roger gives me the art file. I see what it looks like beforehand. I break it all apart, put it all into Unity, and then try to get it to look as good as I can. And then it's just fine tweaking little things. There's always something that bothers me a little bit. When you go play it over again, you got to fix something or change something. So yeah, that's pretty usual now, which is great actually. It's good to get into a rhythm, I think.
And in terms of like managing tasks, do you use any tools or any software, like Jira, for example?
No, I don't actually. I just keep myself on check. Every time I do come up with a problem that I can't change right away, I'll just write it up in Notepad or whatever, just a quick memo, and then go back to it later when I've got free time.
Yeah, awesome. Notepads are very handy.
Yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Roger?
Yeah, so I guess it's workday, wake up, spend some time with my daughter, and then it's like coffee and straight into work. So it's like I do pretty much all my work on the new iPads, just with Procreate. So it's really nice. So I just find a good spot down in the studio, and a lot of design work. So that ranges everything from basically storyboarding concepts, script writing, and then and then you've obviously got visual design and animation and so on and so forth. And then we pretty much we don't use a lot of like scheduling software, because we hit tasks just as they need to be done as quickly as we can. So we just kind of move from task to task. So Ryan ends up with the files via Google Drive, and we've swapped over to Unity from Game Maker Studio 2. So I think that kind of implementation of that PSD work is it's a lot streamlined, and we're noticing a lot more cooler effects and stuff that we can use now. So so we're just and then the kind of future pipeline for us will be I do a lot of the base color, and we'll be doing a lot of color edits and lighting effects and that type of thing. So I'll be in Unity a bit more as well. So so pretty much an average day.
That's awesome. When did you make the change from Game Maker to Unity?
Right when we started the publisher agreement. So
wow.
there was a big talk there about basically porting. So porting is obviously a lot more accessible in Unity. And it very quickly, those kind of conversations come up. And I think it was even in Kiwi Game Starter that it was very heavily discussed that, Rose and Locket would look great on consoles. And, we knew that as well. So, now we're kind of eyeing all of that up. And that was the big change. So Ryan did amazing in that. It was just this whole push to get established and get back to where we were, and then advance it within Unity from where we were in Game Maker Studio 2. So.
Wow. That's amazing. I think that's really for other indie devs out there. I think that is a big turning point. Do you wish, just one question that pops in my head, do you wish you started building this in Unity when you first started a couple of years ago? Would you have done that differently?
Ryan, you take
Yes, no, definitely. I wish I had.
Okay.
There are a lot of It's a lot more streamlined, I'd say. So it saved a lot of time. And plus, it was the whole having to learn a new program, having to get the reins on it. Took a lot of time, I guess. So if we if I'd done that earlier, it would have been a lot faster, I guess. It would have been a lot more ahead.
What's been a great resource for learning Unity in such a short period of time?
Oh well, YouTube, I guess. And Unity has their own beginners thing, but it got to a point where I learned enough of the language that I could translate it, I guess. I like knew the logic behind how to do something, and I just how can I do this in Unity instead? And so it was a lot faster than if someone had just started with Unity and begun. To be fair, yeah,
that's awesome.
I think there's a good point on that actually, where like you know, starting in a smaller software is great. I mean, you can pick up like Godot, or I mean, I started Game Salad way back when, you know, and this thing was so limited. But I tell you what, by the time I got in working with Ryan, I knew the more to the point things not to do when you're expecting from a coding perspective. So I mean, it's really good to start out in those smaller softwares because the accessibility, even drag and drop stuff, and then you can work your way into getting into the back end of actual coding. So I mean, you know, there's some. I mean, other points as well as Game Maker Studio 2. I think Ryan was doing some wizardry in there where he was using kind of overlays and stuff, and it was a lot of technicality where now we can shift to, you know, lighting and kind of these color spectrums and stuff that we're using in Unity. So the pipeline is just so much cleaner and quicker, which means that we can develop faster and more efficiently. So I mean, there's big perks there. Yeah,
that's awesome. Not sure if you'd feel comfortable answering this, but what was the last part of the game that you worked on? Is there anything you can share there with what you're currently just trying to mull your head over and solve?
I think one of the biggest recent successes was getting aim assist feeling right and correctly working within Unity. So once again, Ryan doing some really awesome work there. It was kind of, we were having that big accessibility question and kind of like difficulty levels for the game. And, you know, we wanted 360 aiming, but obviously you can't just have raw 360 aiming. It's not precise enough. So we had to basically accommodate, but still have it feel, you know, like you were achieving the task, not just, I mean, at one point, I think we had full lock on, which didn't work, you know, obviously. So, yeah, that's things. I mean, what we're currently working on is we do have a Q1 demo that we are working on. So that is actually going to be the front end of the game. So that's actually going to be final work that's set there. So we are going to bring that out. We say Q1, but you know, no fixed dates there. So yeah, we're heavily getting that content in. If anybody wants to see that, you can see that pre-work up on our Twitter and Instagram. So you'll see those. I'm doing a lot of pre-color work there, so it does look washed out, but eventually it should look like our vibrant, good content.
Awesome. You kind of answered this before when you said that you wake up and spend time with your daughter, and also just the general feel, you guys saying that it's been calm and not as tense and crunch like as it might have been 6 months ago. But how do you feel about your work-life balance at the moment? Would you say it's in a good state, or is there improvements that you'd like to make there?
You go first, Ryan. I'll jump in afterwards.
I really like where we are at the moment. Yeah, it's like, yeah, like I was saying, it's still a lot of work. There's still lots to do, but it's in a good space. You know, I'm not feeling panicked about it or stressed or anything like that. And I mean, Roger and I are pretty communicative. We talk a lot about what we're doing and how we're going and if we need help and stuff. So it's been really nice, and a really good environment for working, I'd say.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we had it very tough coming up. I mean, we were both by a working part. Ryan dropped to part-time work. I mean, we were doing an insane amount of hours and not a lot of money, sacrificing quite a lot to get to the point of even starting Rose and Locket. So that's kind of the reality there. So I mean, the pre-crunch up until kind of landing that, well, this year basically was pretty horrendous at points. And I think now we're definitely taking that time to enjoy this nicer space. I mean, I do. We've got my newborn daughter Lily here, and that's incredible. You know, like I just
That's right. We
Yeah.
talked about this. We talked about
Yeah.
that. It was on the way. So how's that whole process been?
Been incredible. Look, you know, we had a surprise home birth because things escalated pretty quickly. But so look, you know, a lot of people were like, "Hey, this is going to be really tough," and I was like, "Well, maybe don't have a kid if you're thinking that way." You know, it's of course it's going to be tough. But I guess that kind of works back into what Ryan's saying as well. Like everything is tough with game development. You know, you just it becomes a way of life, and you know, it's not even something that you really discuss anymore of how difficult things are. But I mean, me personally, with having my family here and just working, I couldn't ask for anything better. If I ever start complaining about that, somebody's got the you've got the right to come in and give me a good slapping, because it's like it's so good. Yeah, just being able to basically work, and then having Lily as well. People said it'd be so stressful, and I said, well, it gives you more purpose. You know, like you're doing it for somebody else now as well. You know. And we're so invested in this, and you know, I'm just so grateful to have Ryan and you know, family and everything. And it's like, you know, we're all in this together, and it affects everyone, and we're just all moving forward in the same direction. So we've got each other's backs, and it's very important. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that, and I wonder what this conversation would have felt like if we had this chat like right during the middle of the whole birthing sequence and period, because I feel like now maybe things are settled, the routine is back, and you can kind of concentrate a bit more on the longer term.
I think it was during the birthing period. My wife would have asked what you're doing there, but yeah, this is Carl documenting the event. Yeah, no, like yeah, it's probably, don't get me wrong, there were definitely nerves moving into that. But it's just it's life, isn't it? You know, I mean, the biggest things are the most scariest things, and they're the things that you have to engage in, because that's where the true magic happens. And I think if you're willing to push past your own fears and move into the unknown, then you're going to end up in situations like we have this year. And both Ryan and myself have taken on things that we've been very uncomfortable with, and that's it's a really hard but very powerful lesson to learn. And I hope a lot of like young developers and stuff do that, because it's very important. You know, like you have to put yourself out there, and you have to get involved. And life doesn't stop for anybody. It's you just have to get engaged with it and keep going. So yeah.
Really well said, really inspiring. I'm definitely going to clip that, I think, and post that, because that was really well said. Lean into the fair. How do you feel about the games industry as a whole at the moment?
Oh, this was a good question from us. Ryan, you wanna go first? Maybe give it a try.
What did we say last time?
There was a lot of tension, I think, in the space. I think there's always going to be there's just a lot of I'll let you guys answer. Go. What's on your mind, Ryan?
I don't know. As far as indie games go, I'm pretty hopeful for the future and now, because there's a lot of good stuff coming out, a lot of really creative ideas. I mean, we play a lot, we miss a lot, but yeah, I think indie-wise, things are looking good. I think a lot more people are receptive to the smaller publishers than they were in the past, the smaller developers. As far as AAA goes, I don't really play a lot of them anymore. I don't know, they're kind of lacking of imagination, I'd say, which is what indie has above them. So, yeah, it's in a good space, I'd say, for us especially.
Awesome. And Roger?
Yeah, I think that's a politer way of putting that. You know, AAA is kind of designing itself into a corner here, aren't they? You know, like if you've got all these investors and everybody involved, and you can't break from that formula I mean, there's going to be a point when that dries up and people aren't interested. And I think recently you see with Battlefield coming out, 2042 and Vanguard and these types of games, you know, you're really seeing this kind of contention with the people buying, you know, the players. And the indie sector, like Ryan said, yeah, you're still seeing these amazing creative works come out there, and I think it's that kind of accepted freedom of creativity, and I think it's something that we're focused on. Where if you can take something that is creative but also make it commercial, that's the fine line. If you run that, then hopefully somebody will pick you up. They should, no doubt. I mean, look, I think art house games are fun, you know, but sometimes quite hard to sell, so you kind of got to think both those ways. But yeah, game industry as a whole, probably the same as last time. I've just remembered my answer. It's just kind of all inclusive, yes. I mean, there's something for everybody in there, and I think I've been trying some new genres lately, so that's been kind of cool. Been playing a lot of shmups and that type of thing to kind of, I've gone back and studied a lot of like 90s arcade games, because I'm starting to realize that that's kind of the last time that professionals were in the 2D space before 3D came in. So
Interesting.
I'm trying to kind of foresee and envision where the industry would have gone if 3D didn't exist, and that's a really interesting question to pose. And
Wow, yeah.
We talk about that a lot, and yeah, so I don't know, but you're always seeing that retro revival come through anyway. So I think there's just a lot of gold there. So indie developers, go back, have a look. Especially if you're younger, you go check out the boomer shooters and stuff. Just yeah, that's what I grew up on, and there's some great titles out there. Play Doom 2. Yeah, there you
go. Doom always comes up in conversation when talking about boomer shooters and shoot 'em ups. Awesome. So there's a question here. Do you feel more motivated now or how you were 6 months ago? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, probably more so. I think it grows because we're past the backlog of having to sort out systems, right? So
yeah.
I think most development teams are like this, where you go from concepts into prototyping, and then your prototyping is just a world of nonsense, right? And you have to get all that flowing and sort that out and untangle the kind of Christmas lights, for a better expression of that whole system. And then once you're there, like we are truly at this point where every piece of content we're working on now is going into the game, which will be final content. So that's an amazing space to be in, because the stuff that you've been doing, that type of thing, Ryan, where it's like, you're seeing these really nice effects come out in Unity, and Ryan's cracking these nice particles and explosions, which I love. So it's like, you're seeing that reactional gameplay stuff. So yeah, I would say I'm definitely more motivated now. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, definitely more motivated. I mean, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? It's finally seeing like a full project, and we can actually see the fruition of our work, I guess.
Hell, we can see the tunnel now. That's a start.
That's right. We're in the tunnel now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm feeling.
That's what I find really interesting just about the word motivation, because back in April, May, when you didn't really know like what the whole publisher problem and how that was going to be solved, and like that motivates you in a different way than what being in like a stable routine where how you're going to get the work done over the next 6 months and what you need to do. It's motivation. They're both motivating. They're just different like types of motivation. It's an interesting conversation, but it's good to hear that you're more motivated now, and I'm interested to know how you'll feel in another 6 months time or a year's time post launch. I find post launch a really interesting time to talk about motivation, because there's so many feelings that go through you during that phase.
Well, I think I can imagine post launch would be pretty rocky for most people, emotionally, because I mean everything in yourself and your life and is so tied up, and all goes into this, right? These are big. And I think on that point of motivation, yeah, it's very interesting. I think there's 1,000 different motivating factors, but the thing that I've always noticed is that if you are hyped about your content going in and you can't wait to see that thing established and functioning within your game engine and your system, I mean, that's when you're on the right track, right? When you're excited to basically get that operating and to see that character move and to have that gun operating and that explosion and stuff things. So, I mean, that's a really good like navigational type of tool to use. You should be excited about your content. And maybe if you've been out, take a break, or reassess, readjust, these types of things.
Yeah, definitely. Just having gone through the launch of Icarus, what I've found is, it's not a light switch after launch. It takes every week you're feeling something different. You're looking at different reviews. You're seeing how the team's communicating. There's a lot of problems that you need to solve that could take up to a couple months to really understand what that is and what the future is going to look like. So it's an evolving thing. It's constantly changing, I guess, is good way to put it.
We did say it to you before, but we did want to say it on camera as well. So congratulations on Icarus, and especially massive congratulations on board member for NZGDA.
Thank you. That means I'll be around some more. And yeah, definitely Icarus is really exciting for the New Zealand games industry. And just what's possible. It makes me even more excited about what the next big game coming out of New Zealand is going to be, like what the team behind it is going to be working on, that kind of thing. Maybe it's Rose and Locket 2, which is a 3D Doom shoot 'em up.
You got to be careful with those 3D remake cursors, though, right? That's a good list. 90s, the early 2000s.
Yeah. Rose and Locket 3D. Awesome. There's only a couple more questions, and then I can let you guys get on with the rest of your day. Okay, this is quite a. You might answer it similar to how you did back when we last chatted, but I'm just curious to know if it did change at all. How would you define your game in 3 words? If your core loop is the same, then it might be similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 words: action adventure. That's kind of the standard tag. But I mean,
you throw in the word cinematic every time,
yeah. If you would take for cinematic running gun, there, so you take a little liberty there. But running gun game, really cinematic story. These types of things. I don't think we really have that kind of short core statement at the moment, do we?
That's awesome. It speaks for itself, though, when you just look at the images. It's
we will have to come up with that, though. We're gonna have to limit it down and actually lock something in there. Yeah, we generally just say cinematic running gun. Like
awesome.
That's pretty much what we stick with at the moment. So
I love it. And I mean, the last question is very open-ended, but are there any other stories about the development so far in the last 6 months that you'd like to share? I think you've touched on some really interesting, just like changing game engine, for example, is a huge one. Is there any other big changes? The voice actors, maybe. Was there anything throughout that process that you learned, or you wish you had realized before you even started the process of finding voice actors?
Anything wrong first?
Nothing's coming to mind.
We've had so much go on, obviously, right? So it's been quite a drastic shift over this year, especially. We have had more voice talent come on, and we do have more voice roles to go. So we've been dealing with the voice actors. They're about to come in and start doing more voice content for this Q1 demo. Most of the stuff, I mean, at this point, we are pretty established with the game engine and what we're doing there in the design work. So the kind of things that we really learned over this year was a lot of publisher content and that kind of those relationships there. We did a talk here in Christchurch at the Game Developers Meetup and talked a lot about publishers there. And I think to date we've had about 26 publishers interested in Whistling Wizard and what we're doing over the last 2-3 years. And we didn't really realize at that point that doesn't happen very often, right? So we've been pretty naive. We've just kind of been doing our thing. And we hadn't really announced in New Zealand who we were or what we were doing. So so that kind of publisher process, we had 2 major publishers interested in Rose and Locket, and we had to decide there. So there was big moments where we were weighing up what felt like the gravity of the universe at that point on our shoulders and having to make those choices. And then obviously getting in with your publishers and then you working relationships and having those resources, right? So, it opens up this whole world. And I mean, we're 2 Kiwis sitting here dealing with Spanish, American and British voice actors, with Russian publishers. And, it's like this whole international flavor now. So it's incredible. It's been this big opening eye kind of world experience for us over this year. So that's been a lot of it. The game development and that type of thing, like I said, we stuck that core principles and we've just advanced everything that we've been working on. So we're pretty happy with where it is. Hopefully people see that.
It's already public knowledge, but are you wanting to share your publisher and why you went with them?
Yeah, so it's Critical Reflex. They're based in Moscow. We had another publisher interested, which we won't name them, but look, they were just phenomenal. We've dealt with a lot of publishers, and I think in this talk I stated that you're going to come across every type of publisher when you deal with that many. And when we came with Critical Reflex, started talking to them, they were just so genuinely interested in Rose and Locket as the game. So that was a huge factor for us, because for us, even in our personal lives and what we do with the development, it's game first. We sacrifice a lot, Ryan and myself, for the game. And that's the point. So we needed somebody on par with that. So that was a big deciding factor. And yeah, look, you can go check them out. Critical Reflex Publishing, and we've got links on our social media page and that type of thing. So yeah, they're kind of starting out. We're starting out. It's just a nice thing that we can all move through together. So, yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's really great to hear. If you had to give just a good piece of advice for anyone that is working on a game, maybe with a couple friends, and they're wanting to say submit it to competitions, festivals, whatever it might be, and in turn look for publishers, what advice would you give that you've learned throughout this year that would help them in turn getting publishers' interest and successfully signing on a publisher?
I'll go after you, Ryan, if you if you have something to add to this.
I can't remember what we said last time, but I'd say this time it's just to be like bold and unique. I'd say don't try to copy the latest trend or anything like that. Just make something that's like special to you and unique. You know, maybe it doesn't do well, but it, like you got to risk that. You know, you got to make a risk to actually get anywhere. I guess you can't play it safe and expect big results. I'd say.
No, that's
very
awesome.
well, but yeah. Look, it's the ironic thing about those 26, 27 publishers is we never contacted anybody. They came to us, and we realized that that's a pretty phenomenal space to be in. But I guess it's that thing of like, yeah, what Ryan's saying is, if you build a meme game, that meme's probably going to be dead by the time that game is released, right? So I would say do some real soul searching here. Make sure that what you're building is something that you really believe in, and then also make sure that you're making it commercial. Like it's great to build games that you want to build, but make sure that it is bold and is sellable. And if you're trying to get out to those events, I mean, you have to have some type of standout feature to what you're doing in your game. One thing I've always said, like we've had a bit of traction on our social media pages, and we don't really do the whole social media game. We just kind of post content, so that's been nice. But I always say that basically when you're scrolling through a feed on Twitter or Instagram, it's so noisy. Bring some simplicity to your visual content on those things, because it's going to be a nice stopping point. Negative space is a very powerful visual tool, and it's something that can draw people in. So in a world of noise, be where it's quiet, and if it's quiet, be where the noise is. You want to be somewhere slightly different, and give people something that they can attach to that's a little bit different but still sellable. So yeah, do some soul searching. Make sure that you're building it for the right reasons. Don't do it for money. Those people, you might get into the app space and you might be able to do that for a wee while and it might work, and some people are very good at that. But if you're really truly passionate about the content that you're building, make sure that it is something that you are truly passionate about. And it's very important, because that passion and that heartfelt kind of direction will show through and people will connect to that. So be genuine, I guess, is a bit of a cheesy answer, but yeah, there you go.
I love it. No, really well said. Spoken like a true artist as well, talking about negative space. And
that's what I'm there to make sure things happen.
which is great. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. The last question I had that I forgot to ask when we spoke last was, where does the name Whistling Wizard come from? Why have you named your company Whistling Wizard?
Somebody else asked this, didn't they? I think it was in another article we had. It was actually a joke. We were having to set up the company, and Ryan was doing the registration, was sitting on call, and he said, what's your name? And he's like, oh, why don't we do Whistling Wizard? And I was like, yeah, do it. So it just kind of, yeah, went from there. Yet again, I know there's kind of a bit of a pulling power in having something that's a bit silly and a bit unique, And, Whistling Wizard kind of spoke to me of kind of arcades and the kind of old retro thing as well. So, Wizard Arcade and that type of thing. So I don't know. I just, I was like, yeah, a name's what you make it, right? So I was like, let's make it out of this. And then logo was done up, and there we are. Love it.
Yeah, great answer. Great. Well, thank you so much for just giving me your time again, and just on behalf of the NZGDA and just I think the New Zealand games industry as a whole. It's really, really powerful to just hear your stories and your feelings during this time, which is so critical for your game dev journey, which so many people beforehand would get so much value in just listening to how things have gone. And Rose and Lock hasn't released yet, and that's going to be a whole thing again. and we're definitely going to be looking and really excited to see you both represent the New Zealand games industry and put something out there on a global stage. So yeah, thank you for giving your time, your answers, being honest and open about what's happening at the moment. And yeah, it's been a pleasure from my end to just hear your stories and see how your journey's evolved over time.
I appreciate that, man. And I guess probably one final note is, Ryan and myself, we're just two guys. We're just two people. And honestly, look, if we can do it, there's nothing special about us here. So, we can do it. Developers and designers out there, just go for it. And honestly, just make it very, very heartfelt and very genuine, and get past that fear factor and put yourselves out there. And if you really do that, the world will answer back to you and it will provide. So you just got to make sure that you really, believe in yourself and do it. And honestly, just that kind of final point. If two goobers like us can do it, anybody can. Absolutely. So, yeah. And thank you very much for having us today. It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, awesome. And where can people find you if they are interested in getting in touch or seeing your latest work, or getting in touch if they have any questions or opportunities for you?
Yeah, so basically Whistling Wizard on just Twitter and Instagram. So we just have links in a bio there, so you can find like previous prototype demos, web address, email, that sort of thing as well. So, if you just want to go there, check out some work, or drop us a DM or whatever, or say hi from NZ. It's always cool to talk to other New Zealand developers. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. Ka kite.
Yeah, awesome. See ya.